Welcome to the Content Talk, in which we will discuss the many factors that affect and influence families. Each person's definition of a family will vary and will be influenced by their own experiences. Further, even in our class, definitions and ideas that we have will vary about families and family engagement. But family engagement is more than attendance at school functions and participation in school events. It refers to the intentional efforts of parents and others to be a part of their children's learning and development by promoting positive behaviors and ensuring well-being. William Jens noted that when families discern that they are welcome and their input is warmly received, they are more likely to be involved. Many studies highlight that as one of the most influential factors is families feeling welcomed, which promotes family engagement. So we really want to think about families, and family engagement comes in many forms. Family engagement is shared responsibility among families, educators, and communities. So it's different than other types of traditional family involvement where schools tell families what's going to happen. Family engagement is this shared interaction. And when teachers and programs welcome families, it becomes easier for families to become engaged. So throughout this content talk, you're going to be hearing a lot of different information that's going to help you identify factors that affect the United States population of families, and that you'll be able to describe the changing family demographics across the United States and think about the different risks that these families may face. Families with children make up almost 1/3 of the U.S. population, thus making the family an important system to study. In 2017, there were approximately 325.7 million people in the United States. So that means about 97.6 million are a part of families with children. The number of different factors that affect families with children are varied. Some of the main challenges are poverty, marital status, uncertain living conditions, shifts in population, shifts in socioeconomic diversity, and the changing roles of the family. This list is not exhaustive, but there are more factors that influence families and children. But in this session, we will discuss poverty, marital status, unstable, uncertain living conditions, social and linguistic isolation, and socioeconomic diversity, and the changing roles of family. In early childhood programs, we might want to consider what percentage of our families are homeless, live in poverty, are undocumented, do not speak English at home, are raised by lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender parents, live in a single-parent home, have more than one parent that's incarcerated, or live with their grandparents. This list just tells us how dynamic and fluid and varied our young children who are students in our classrooms can be having different family makeup. The statistics presented here represent real people who live in these circumstances. Approximately 9.7 million families live in poverty. Each of these bullets represent a great many of adults and children who are affected by this. 10% of all families live in poverty, including 17% of children under the age of 5. About half of the adults over 15 are married, and about half of those marriages will end in dissolution. 1/3 of children are born to single mothers, and 65% of children under the age of 6 have both parents in the labor force. So both parents are working. One of the risk factors for families is poverty. Children whose families fall at or below the poverty line are likely to have lower success in school. However, the percent of families in poverty varies by the family form and marital status. 10% of all families live in poverty. However, families with children under 18 are more likely to live in poverty. And those children under 5 are more likely to live in poverty. As you see from this graph, the rate of children living in poverty has increased over the past decade. Poverty is a risk factor for family functioning and child development. Families of households with children under 5 are more likely to be living in poverty. More than 1/3 of children are born to mothers who are unmarried. Single mothers with children are at an even greater risk of living in poverty. 37% of single mothers with children under 18 are living in poverty. Later, we'll look at information about the percentage of young mothers who earn a college degree by age 30. So single mothers living in poverty are also at a greater risk for remaining in poverty. What does this tell us about early learning programs that serve single mothers? They are more likely to be living in poverty and need to be supported to follow through on any dreams that they have on getting a college education. This graph illustrates the difference in poverty rates among children in single-parent families, which is the blue line, compared to percentages of all children, whether single or two-parent families who are living in poverty. In 2011, while 23% of children were living in poverty, 35% of children in single-parent families were living in poverty. Children of single-parent families are more at risk for poverty. However, generally speaking, the rate of children in poverty has increased since 2008. So while single-parent families have a greater percentage, both figures are on the rise since 2008. Overall, more children are living in poverty today. So we really need to think about this. Thinking about poverty, thinking about single mothers, what does this information mean to you? And how can you use this information in your role in early childhood education, in program development, in community development? Again, each of the bullets that are presenting information have a great amount of impact on families. Families account for 40 to 50% of the nation's homeless. This year, 1.6 million to 2.5 million children will be homeless. In 2016, 22% of homeless families were in the chronic pattern of homelessness. Think about what these statistics mean and how it might affect your work with children and families. Think also about the effects on young children who are facing unstable or uncertain living conditions. This graphic shows a map from the 2014 Annual Homeless Assessment Report to Congress from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. It shows the share of homeless people in families by state. States like New York, California, Massachusetts, Florida, and Texas have the largest proportions of homeless families, but homeless families are in every city, state, and country. Here are a few more statistics from the HUD report. On a single night in January 2014, 216,261 people in families were homeless. This represents 37% of all homeless people. Almost 60% of homeless people in families were under the age of 18. Incarceration. Another factor that affects millions of children is incarceration. Imagine that you're a 4-year-old whose mother is in prison. Whether the imprisonment is justified or not, perhaps as a desperate act of a caring parent, it still means the parent and child will be separated. Sometimes this separation occurs for years, with a whole set of difficulties around visitations and care for the child. Think back to the family systems theory and attachment. What might be the negative effects for children from these types of separation experiences? More than 5 million children in the United States have had a parent incarcerated. That's 1 in 14 children. An estimated 1.7 million to 2.7 million children have an incarcerated parent. And these rates are differential based on race. 1 in 9 African American children will have a parent incarceration. 1 out of 26 Hispanic children will have an incarcerated parent. 1 in 57 white children will have an incarcerated parent. These are drastic statistics for us to understand equality and racial and social justice issues even further. If this population interests you and you want to learn more about individuals and families involved in incarceration experiences, this might be a good action research topic. Migrant workers is another great action research topic. Whatever your political views may be, in this course, you are invited to consider the implications of certain circumstances for young children and families. Over 3 million migrant and seasonal farm workers are in the United States. 72% are foreign-born. 52 to 65% are parents. 65% either cannot speak English or do not speak it very well. Try to imagine how many rooms of this size it would take to hold 3 million people. Approximately 1.6 million of those people are parents, many who cannot speak English. This means navigating our systems in schools can be difficult. What might be some of the ways early childhood education programs can best serve migrant populations of children and families? It's time to pause the content talk and go to the video link in Blackboard to where that you can hear some firsthand stories from migrant workers and their children as they discuss and share their experiences living in the United States and working with their children in school settings. As you listen to the video, think about these questions. What are you learning about the lives of children and families of migrant workers, and what do you want to know more about? Estimates by several organizations indicate there are between 11 million and 11.5 million unauthorized immigrants in the United States. The Migration Policy Institute estimates that there were 5.1 million children under the age of 18 with at least one unauthorized immigrant parent between 2009 and 2013, which represents 30% of all children of immigrants and 7% of the total U.S. child population. The great majority, 4.1 million of these children, were born in the U.S. Linguistic isolation represents an important risk factor for child development. Parents without strong English skills generally fare poorly in the U.S. labor market and have difficulty navigating institutions such as public schools, preschool and early childhood programs, health and social service providers. Of the 5.1 million children, 43% were linguistically isolated. Thinking about these important factors, you might want to consider this population of families for your action research project. Another varying factor for our families' makeup and dynamics are children who are in foster care living with foster families. Foster families care for so many children. These numbers do not tell their stories or address their needs. Approximately 42,000 young children were in longer-term foster care in 2015. What might be some different needs of foster families and of children in foster care? One that comes to mind is more support at separation during drop-off times at preschool or the child care center. The numbers of foster care children highlight how many children are living in different circumstances than those who are living with a biological family or a parent that's a single parent. There are a lot of military families in the United States. Across the Department of Defense, there are about 1.8 million military children. The largest percentage of children up to age 5, about half, or almost 1.1 million children are of active duty members, are 6 years or younger. Over 500,000 children under 6 have parents in the military. Many of those parents will be deployed to active service and live apart from their children. Again, think about the family systems theory and attachment and how these concepts relate to military families, and also think about what kind of support military families may need from early childhood programs. When a teenage couple has a baby, what happens? Many end up living with their parents, yet lose their connections to their most carefree peers. What social supports do they need to be able to take care of their child? A gathering of younger parents might be helpful. What do you think is the rate of young mothers going on to getting a college degree, and why do you think that rate is so low? Again, you're being presented with numbers of statistics that do represent real people. So as such, in 2015, 229,715 infants were born in the United States to women ages 15 to 19, and several of those, and a good portion of those were unmarried. While this number is down from previous years, it is twice the amount of Canada's teens pregnancy rate, 4 times Germany and France's, and 8 times that of Japan. Of these women, 1.5% on average will go on to earn a college degree by age 30. Now let's take a look on the influences on family well-being. Here is a definition of family well-being from Head Start. Safe, healthy, and increased financial security. Head Start and Early Head Start have engaged families to enhance family and child outcomes for over 50 years. The policy of these programs give family and children's well-being a priority with a focus on comprehensive services that support the whole family. Because when families are safe, healthy, and financially secure, they are more likely to reach the goals they have for themselves and for their children. Safety and stability. Family well-being is characterized in part by the overall safety and stability of family members. This can include housing stability, neighborhood security, and personal welfare, such as adult and child safety in the home and neighborhood. Housing and neighborhoods will be covered on upcoming slides. Let's look at personal safety. 3 interrelated personal safety concepts are at play: domestic violence, unintentional injuries, and cultural safety. First, we must consider the devastating impact of child abuse and neglect and domestic violence. Adverse early childhood experiences such as abuse rewire the developing brain. Children who experience abuse have less than optimal brain development. Experiencing family violence also is associated with poor outcomes for children. For children ages 1 through 5, unintentional injuries are the leading cause of death. These include injuries from falls, accidents, etc. The rates are highest for children who live in poverty. Cultural safety refers to environments and societal practices that recognize, respect, and honor the cultural identities of others. The effects of racism are long-lasting and have a powerful influence on young children's identity development and families' engagement with the institutions around them. Now let's take a look at housing instability. There is no universal accepted definition of housing instability, but public health researchers have suggested these features: struggling to pay rent, spending more than 50% of income on housing, moving frequently, living in overcrowded conditions, doubling up with friends or relatives. Think about children that you serve. How might they be impacted by any of these features? How might housing instability influence the partnership that families are able to build with early educators? Cultures differ in preferred living patterns. Extended families are not, by definition, experiencing housing instability when they are choosing to live together, and the definition of crowded and doubling up will vary across cultures. Families who do not have stable housing report a loss of parental control. They are more likely to experience violence and abuse and an increased level of fear or anxiety. Homelessness for young children is correlated with poorer academic outcomes. Take a moment to think about what ideas can you consider for understanding the features of neighborhoods that promote family well-being. What features of neighborhoods promote safety and stability? What about your neighborhood and other neighborhoods? What is one way that you could begin to know a child's community? Think about what you might come up with. Think about the lighting and physical safety that are brought about from the feeling of the neighborhood? Do the neighborhoods have sidewalks or paths that are easy and accessible to pedestrians? Are there parks and places that families and children can gather together safely and play and experience outdoor activities? Do neighborhoods have close proximity to libraries, community centers? Do they have access to healthy food choices, transportation, and employment? Safe neighborhoods provide an opportunity for children to interact with their peers and elders. They learn social norms and expectations, and they build a sense of place and belonging. Safe neighborhoods are important for child development and have the infrastructure to promote family health, activity, and wellness. There are many benefits to getting to know a child's community well. You may find that you see new ways of approaching a child's interests and strengths. You may understand the community assets and risks with more clarity. Identify agencies or services that families access. Identify leaders in the community and understand out-of-school time. Finally, the community and families will come to see you as an interested, caring member of the school community. As we get to know families and communities, there's many ways that we can go about this, such as taking neighborhood walks, being a part of neighborhood meetings, holding home visits, and reaching out to families with positive phone calls. Home visits are a common part of early childhood education. In fact, some service delivery models are built entirely around professionals visiting the homes and providing in-home educational experiences for children and their families. The strategies listed on this slide provide progressively more detailed information about an individual family. Let's take a look. Neighborhood walks. Neighborhood walks are an innovative and empowering way to get to know families and communities. Walking the neighborhood helps you come to know the community in which you work. You will see physical and cultural features of the environment that influence children's development. A community member facilitating the neighborhood walk is best. This person is often considered a cultural broker. They introduce you to the assets of the community. This person should be very familiar with the school and the community or have lived there for some time. An effective neighborhood walk takes you to community hubs such as churches, community centers, grocery stores, barber shops, and so on. You introduce yourself, explain your purpose for walking, and ask questions to help you get to know the community. Now we turn to the second aspect of family well-being, which is health. This consists of 4 pieces: food security, parental health, health care, and mental health. Let's first focus on food security by looking at its opposite. Food insecurity is defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture by a lack of consistent access to food for active and healthy life to be sustained. Food insecurity exists in every country in every county in the United States. In 2015, 13 million children lived in households with the lack of consistent access to food. Among households with children, 17% reported food insecurity. Higher rates is reported where children are living in a single-parent household, a Black non-Hispanic household, and a Hispanic household. It is very likely that you will work with a family experiencing this inconsistency. States with higher than average food insecurity include Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Kentucky. Just like with housing instability, think about what food insecurity does and how it impacts families and children. Think about how it impacts our work with families and our expectations for events at school. Like, do we expect families to bring snacks for their child's birthday or other special events? It's important to think of families as a system. Anything that impacts one member will affect another. A parent's health influences a child and a family's well-being. So think about ways that if parents' poor health might affect the children. Parents may not have access to energy or the energy to participate in a child's school or early education program. They might have fragile health that's compromised because their immune system is low. There might be high stress or medical issues that interfere with a parent's ability to have positive interactions with you or their child. They may be depressed or have stress that interferes with positive interactions and affection. Children may also experience more trips to the emergency room, inconsistent child well visits, and more chronic health conditions such as asthma. Consistent health care is critical for family well-being. A primary care provider can provide the consistent and preventative care needed to help families stay healthy. Providers can also help families connect the community and health services available to them. Be sensitive to lingering issues. In 2011, a study found that 1 in 10 mothers suffered from depression in the past 12 months. The highest rate of this is white women, Native American women, and those with low-level education or low income, those who are unemployed or unmarried. Unmarried mothers are under 35 years old with a low education and low income were most at risk. Researchers have found that depression in mothers is significantly associated with more hostile, negative parenting and with more withdrawn parenting. Less is known about depression in fathers. Infants and young children of mothers with depression are more likely to use a variety of emergency healthcare services, and they are more likely to experience accidents, asthma, risky behaviors such as smoking or alcohol substance abuse. Many children are living with a family member with substance abuse issues that are greater risk for abuse, neglect, and various behavioral and academic challenges. Lastly, let's look at financial security. Financial security is an important component of family well-being. It is often connected to other components such as mental health, food scarcity, food insecurity, and child outcomes. Family financial security and education level are often related. Lack of a high school diploma is considered a risk factor. Supporting families' goals related to parental education are an important component of family engagement. Your program can help families set goals related to financial security, such as financial health, savings account, and budgeting.